Well, hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. It is so great to be along with you. What is the truth about Stormy Daniels? We know she's a porn star. We also know that she has a vendetta against President Trump. This started a long time ago. This alleged affair happened 18 years ago. And then, certainly from an outsider's perspective, this looks like an extortion scheme, and yet President Trump is the one on trial. Do you know Stormy Daniels owes President Trump $500,000 from a defamation case that she lost and was ordered to pay President Trump $500,000? She said she's willing to go to jail over paying that money to him. So this is the prosecution's star witness. She's got a lot of history of trying to profit off of President Trump and anything surrounding him, and I'm going to get into all of that today. But first, I want to tell you the show's brought to you by Midas Gold Group, MidasGoldGroup.com. Now's the time to put your money into precious metals. Do it today. Also, folks, President Trump on the verge of being held in contempt again for shaking his head no, for mumbling under his breath. The judge says this is contemptuous. You don't believe me? I'm going to prove it from the court transcripts. I've got it for you. With that, let's get the show started, folks, and get it rocking and rolling.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, as I mentioned, Stormy Daniels. She is the big problem right now because she's offering up all kinds of salacious details. It's basically a training class in how to have erotic sex. That's about what her testimony amounted to with the amount of salacious details that she got into. It's a tutorial, basically, of how to go about sexual activity. Now, that, folks, has nothing to do with the crime at hand. A records keeping case. And you know what I read, which nobody is talking about? They keep calling this a business records case. Well, first they call it a hush money case. Then if you're smart, you call it a business records case. You know, this wasn't even a corporate account. This was a personal account of President Trump, a personal bank account, where it got labeled as a legal expense when you had two lawyers negotiating a deal to buy a story. Why wouldn't you label that as a legal expense? Of course you would. And they've been unable, by the way, to prove that President Trump had anything to do with that. The low-level accountant putting the entry into the books that she never talked to President Trump, and the lawyers never talked to President Trump about what to label it as, and yet an election charge he's alleged of covering up, an election charge that was never brought against President Trump, that only the feds can prosecute, and the state says this is some kind of a wild cover-up, and we're 3 weeks into this, and nothing has been proven as of yet. So I want to tell you about why President Trump could be held in contempt. The first is from today. My guess is you're going to see Alvin Bragg march this social media post that President Trump offered up, and he's going to march this social media post in and say this is a reason why President Trump should be held in contempt. Now, you have to love this president who basically said he's willing to go to jail for the Constitution, which makes me even more and more proud of him, more and more proud to be part of an army behind him trying to make sure we get him back in the White House. But when you look at the social media posts, you've got to say, you know what? He is poking the bear. He's daring them to put him in prison. Here's his social media post from this morning. This is Wednesday morning. Quote, "It is a really bad feeling to have your constitutional right to free speech, such a big part of life in our country, so unfairly taken from you, especially when all of the sleazebags, lowlifes, and grifters that you oppose are allowed to say absolutely anything they want. It is hard to sit back and listen to lies and false statements to be made against you, that if you respond, even in the most modest fashion, you are told by a corrupt and highly conflicted judge that you will be put in prison, maybe for a long period of time." Now, he calls them sleazebags, lowlifes, and grifters, clearly talking about the witnesses, Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, which seems to me you're a grifter when you operate in an extortion scheme. You got busted in court for claiming these false claims of defamation, and now you got to pay President Trump $500,000. They're all true statements, but this judge is going to say, even though you didn't say the name, we're holding you in contempt again. Does he put him in jail for this? I think the judge knows that throwing President Trump into jail for this would be a really, really, really bad mistake. But we shall see, folks. This is President Trump saying, you know what, I'm going to thumb my nose at this because I have a constitutional right. He goes on to say in this Truth Social post, this fascist mindset is all coming from D.C. It is a sophisticated hit job on crooked Joe Biden's political opponent, me. Judges Engeron and Kaplan, also of New York, are equally corrupt, only in different ways. What these thugs are doing is an attack on the Republican Party and our once great nation itself. Our First Amendment must stand free and strong. Give me liberty or give me death. God bless President Trump. The strength this man shows in the face of the adversity that the Democrats are throwing at him at every turn, to me, quite frankly, is astonishing. I don't know how he does it. So now consider this. President Trump is in court, okay? And he is facing Stormy Daniels. President Trump in court, Stormy Daniels is making up all of these things. President Trump says this is a made-up story that has nothing to do with the case at hand, nothing to do with why something was registered one way or another. It's just salacious details designed to get Trump. And what does the judge do? The judge admonishes President Trump for shaking his head at Stormy Daniels' testimony, for mumbling under his breath in frustration at Stormy Daniels' testimony. Cursing is what the judge says, which is pretty funny. I know President Trump, and he's not afraid to use the curse word, as most New Yorkers are not. Even myself, I have the ability to do that. Might surprise you. Doesn't happen often on this program, but every now and then I might let one fly. I can imagine if someone was on the stand, I might be mumbling some curse words, that's for sure. You want to see the interaction between the judge and President Trump's team? This is it. My buddy Simon Atiba, great White House guy, media guy from Africa, had posted this on his Truth Social. I urge you to follow him, Simon Atiba. He's a great guy. This is what it says. The court, this is the judge. I understand that your client is upset at this point, but he is cursing audibly and he is shaking his head visually, and that's contemptuous. Now, wait a second. Shaking your head visibly is contempt. That's contempt. That's not violating a gag order. You're in court. You should be allowed to react to witness testimony. And if the jury sees it, that's part of being a jury. Judging who's telling the truth, how one person is responding. You can't ask someone to remain stoic. More grounds here for a mistrial that the judge, by the way, refused to grant after this crazy, salacious testimony by Stormy Daniels. So this goes on between the president's attorneys. So the judge says it has the potential to intimidate the witness, and the jury can see that. President Trump's attorney says, I will talk to him. The judge says, so I'm speaking to you here at the bench because I don't want to embarrass him. I will talk to him, his attorney says. You need to speak to him. I won't tolerate that. I will talk to him. Now, give me a break. If someone is saying something about you on the stand and you are the one being politically persecuted, you're one being brought up on these bogus charges, you have a right to sit there and react however you want to react, providing you're not disrupting court, saying something out loud, doing something crazy. Shaking your head no is completely well within the bounds of what a defendant can do in court. And it is important the jury see how upset President Trump is. You take that away, that takes President Trump's ability to defend himself completely out of play. And really, it's not fair. So now we get into the salacious details that Stormy Daniels offered up. And, you know, the media, in their quest to cover for Stormy Daniels, they're so awful and devious. This Lawrence O'Donnell, I want you to hear how he describes Stormy Daniels. Now, mind you, this is a woman who just came in and gave a tutorial of how to engage in the craziest, most salacious sexual activity you could imagine. This is what Lawrence O'Donnell has to say on MSNBC.
She entered wearing all black, as if on her way to a funeral. The loose-fitting, plain black clothing draping from her shoulders to her toes suggested the modesty of a nun.
Folks, the modesty of a nun? That's what he's telling us, is that she was in there, this porn star who has made a living through sexual activity, who had a strip club routine, by the way, called Make America Horny Again. And she took this on the road to what? Profit off her association with President Trump. Everything she has done has been about profiting off of President Trump. Now, you tell me if that is appropriate or not. I will tell you it is most certainly not appropriate. It's not appropriate at all. There's Stormy Daniels. I'm not sure anybody in that courtroom confused her with a nun, Lawrence O'Donnell. But this is what they do. Now, I want to tell you, I'm going to play some clips from a former judge. But before I do that, folks, I want to tell you about my friends over at Patriot Mobile. PatriotMobile.com/Grant is where I want you to go. Use the promo code Grant. You get free activation. I have a Patriot Mobile phone. I'm telling you, you've got to make the switch. You've got to become part of this army of people that is now using Patriot Mobile for their cell phone service. And I'll tell you why. Because this is an army about taking back our country. There's a reason why Patriot Mobile describes themselves as America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. There is nobody else out there like them. They are putting their money where their mouth is. They support veterans' causes, First Amendment, our first responders. They are big on helping members of the military, supporting gun rights across America, pro-life issues. All of these things Patriot Mobile is intimately involved with. And I've told you about the program In God We Trust, putting these signs in schools. If this is what you want from a company you do business with, then you got to be with Patriot Mobile. You're not going to sacrifice service. It's the same networks you can choose from, only you're using a Patriot Mobile phone and you're not giving your money to a woke cell phone company. You're giving your money to Patriot Mobile. 972-PATRIOT is the number, 972-PATRIOT. Use that promo code GRANT for free activation. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. I promise you, you will not regret it. The performance guarantee, ask them about it. No other cell phone company can offer up their performance guarantee. PatriotMobile.com/Grant, 972-PATRIOT. You tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right, back to this Stormy Daniels case here. A federal judge had talked about what unfolded here. Talked about what Stormy Daniels' testimony was really all about. Listen to her.
The material that came in was not relevant to this criminal case at all. And I think it shows that she was trying to get Trump. I actually thought there was a motive there. She said she hates him. She said she'd like to see him in prison. I think she was purposely throwing out this stuff to make sure the jurors were prejudiced, particularly the women jurors, but probably half of the men too, were really put off.
Well, folks, listen, it is a matter of not her idea. This is the prosecution's idea. They have not made a case against President Trump yet for anything, so they're going to try to taint the jury, prejudice the jury by bringing out all of these very, very salacious details. Now, let me go through some of the facts of the case with Stormy Daniels. This affair happened 18 years ago. She denied it in writing, okay? So she denies that the affair ever happened. She squeezes Trump for $130,000, which, as I mentioned, sure seems like an extortion scheme. The demands of President Trump start to intensify as you get closer and closer and closer to the election, which is why I say this sure looks like extortion. I mentioned the strip club routine she had. The strip club routine is important because it shows she has a history of trying to profit off President Trump. Make America horny again. Okay? Off the Make America Great Again mantra. So add into that her long-standing inconsistency of telling these stories. She's got a history of changing the story over and over and over again. Everything seems to evolve on stand. And now she says she blacked out. She had dinner with President Trump. They go back of all this stuff. All of it President Trump denies. Then she claims she blacks out. So I would offer to you that this is This is Stormy Daniels at her worst. And even CNN is taking notice of all of this.
The cross-exam, boy, her responses were disastrous. I mean, do you hate Donald Trump? Yes, of course she does. That's a big deal. When the witness hates the person whose liberty is at stake, that's a big damn deal. And she's putting out tweets, fantasizing about him being in jail. That really undermines the credibility. The fact that she owes him $500,000, she, by order of a court, owes Donald Trump $500,000 and said, I will never pay him. I will defy a court order. The defense is going to say she's willing to defy a court order. Why? She's not willing to respect an order of a judge. Why is she going to respect this oath she took? So I thought it went quite poorly on cross-exam. At the end of direct, I thought, okay, they got what they needed. But I think the cross is making real inroads.
All right, so, folks, that's CNN talking about Stormy Daniels, who you see on your screen there. And this is all, of course, talking about what unfolded in court. So amazing to me when you think about CNN now is admitting just how freaking devious the prosecution is, Stormy Daniels is, through all of it. Here's the thing. She now claims that this was not about money, that this was just about getting the story out there before he was elected. And she instructed her manager, though, this comes out in cross-examination, to do whatever she can to get the story out. Now, it had nothing to do with money. Then what are you instructing your manager to get the story out there? She wanted a payday. She didn't get it. In fact, it cost her money. Don't forget she owes Trump $500,000 now. Greg Jarrett on Fox has done a terrific job summing a lot of this stuff up. This is him talking about all that.
Well, Stormy Daniels was called to the witness stand for only one purpose, Sean, to slime Trump. But she's peddled so many conflicting stories. You know, you get whiplash on cross-examination, though. She withered. She was confronted with hard evidence that her motive was greed, hatred of Trump. So, you know, hopefully jurors saw her for what she is, a shakedown artist. It's her livelihood. And at one point, she unbelievably claimed, I don't care about the money, only making my story public. Well, if that's true, why did you agree to remain silent in exchange for big bags of money? She is so clueless, she walked right into it today. And as witnesses go, I'd say she self-destructed. But the professor is right. None of what she had to say today was remotely relevant to any of the charges against Donald Trump. She had no knowledge. Prosecutors put her on the stand to vilify Trump with a salacious story, irrelevant, highly prejudicial, probative of nothing. And that is the legal standard that makes her testimony inadmissible. And any fair judge would not have allowed it. Unfortunately for Donald Trump, he's stuck with Juan Marchand as the judge.
So why does Stormy Daniels do this? Why is she so hell-bent on getting Trump? Besides her vindictive behavior, besides her trying to profit off of this, I'm sure she's going to think she's going to turn all of this attention into some kind of money train. She wants to advance her career, even if it's her career as a porn star or a stripper. She wants to up her publicity. So you've got that aspect of all of this, of Stormy Dancer, that should be her name. Stormy Daniels advancing her career. She justifies the extortion scheme by coming to the trial and in her eyes, maybe doing good, helping Democrats. In her eyes, she justifies the extortion scheme. I think she does just the opposite. I think in the end, this testimony, the more I get into it, the more I hear people talk about it that was in the courtroom, read some of the testimony. I think they ended up helping President Trump again yesterday. Now, if you're President Trump, this is not a great day in court. You don't want to be sitting there having to hear all of these salacious details that you insist never happened. So now you're facing what you believe to be your lies, and you're sitting there and you know that your wife is at home, quite possibly reading reports of all of this. It's not a spot any man wants to be in. But as far as his case goes, the charges against him, I think the jury has got to be seeing all of this for what it is. Don't forget, she lost that defamation suit. She owes him $500,000. She said, I will go to jail before I pay him the money. Again, this is not a credible witness. She is an untrustworthy witness. And I will review again the case against President Trump. You've got, from what I understand now, and I'm going to check to make sure this is right, that it was his personal bank account this came out of. Personal bank account. It's not even a corporate issue. These are illegal expenses because you had two lawyers negotiating the deal, including lawyers with Stormy Daniels. You're buying consideration. As her lawyer said that it was, consideration mean something of value. That happens to be her story. You're buying her story. It's not hush money. You're buying her story for value. She won't tell it anywhere else. So none of her story about the sex fits into that crime. That is also a federal election crime that can only be prosecuted by the feds, that was denied prosecution by the feds. And now you have Alvin Bragg trying to say that the cover-up of a federal crime is what the state crime is. And it all gets back to there's nothing here. And I'll leave you with this. If you don't think Stormy Daniels hates President Trump, in fact, she testified about not liking this guy. She called him an orange turd. Now, how is that appropriate? President Trump can't shake his head in disgust, but she can call him an orange turd? That's where we are in America today, folks. And it is a very, very, very sad state of affairs. Don't forget, folks, my friends, over at Midas Gold Group, 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-GOLD. They're doing such a fabulous job of getting people the opportunity to use gold as an inflation hedge. So I was just reading the price of gold right now, making record highs. But if you look at that compared to when it was at its record highs, decades ago, it's higher money-wise. But value-wise, it's not. When you take the dollar and adjust it for inflation over time, gold right now isn't even close to the price of what it was back 20, 30 years ago. So this is another reason why gold is going to go a lot higher. Not that I like to talk about the value of gold. I don't think that's important here when investing in gold. I think the investment in gold play is to hoard it, to hold it, to collect as much of it as you can. It is a physical commodity. It can never totally lose its value. I mean, it can never go to zero like a stock can, right? A company can go out of business. Gold's a commodity. You hold it, it never goes bad. Look, wheat can go bad. Corn can go bad. Commodities. Gold never goes bad, which is why when I say it stays the test of time, it really does. 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-GOLD. MidasGoldGroup.com. Pay them a visit, MidasGoldGroup.com. And don't forget, folks, about my website, GrantStinchfield.com, GrantStinchfield.com. Stinchfield1776. I urge you to check out my Instagram, just on a little funny note. My little puppy, who often watches me do these podcasts, Goose is his name, made an appearance on the Real America's Voice show last night. Unexpected appearance, rushing the set. Why did he rush the set? I believe it was because of the story. The Boy Scouts are changing their name to Scouting America? Are you going to be kidding me? And they're doing this because they claim it's inclusion that is in play. Well, my dog got so upset at this, he jumped up on me during the show. I posted that clip on my Instagram, Stinchfield1776. Check that out. Give me a follow there. YouTube, we're airing these on YouTube as well. Follow me there. If you're on Facebook, share and like. I would so greatly appreciate that. But this idea of Boy Scouts changing their name to Scouting America, folks, I don't need inclusion in the Boy Scouts. I don't need inclusion in the men's room. I don't need inclusion in the women's locker room. I don't need inclusion in many places. Leave it the Boy Scouts, unless they're changing the name. They may claim it's because of inclusion, because now they're accepting girls into the Boy Scouts. Maybe it's because of all the bad publicity, this sexual abuse that had happened inside the Boy Scouts. Maybe they just want to change the name. That's not a bad idea, but come clean about that. Say we're changing our image. But this idea of letting girls in the Girl Scouts is ridiculous. All right, folks, I so appreciate all of you watching. Don't forget the Real America's Voice show tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We will see you there for that, I hope. And Stinchfield's Army rolls. Thanks to all of you. See you, folks.